Hey, I'm ZSH Plays. Welcome to Jurassic World Northwest, where today we're going to be using this to build the perfect Triceratops habitat. Let's go. This is a white rhinoceros, and this is a Triceratops, and it is exactly twice the size of a white rhino. And that means we can use this guide for zoos to work out what the requirements would be for a Triceratops if we had them in a real zoo and build them the perfect habitat. We use the animal husbandry manuals to help design our Planet Zoo habitats all the time, but we've never done it in Jurassic World Evolution before. So if you're not familiar with them, they are the guidebooks that accredited zoos will use to inform the design of their habitats. It's full of information like the recommended size for a habitat for that animal, which is what we're measuring out here, what you should have in the habitat, what barriers you need to keep them in, all the things you need to think about to make really good quality habitats. And when I was planning this episode, it struck me that the Triceratops are in fact exactly twice the size of a white rhino. So this square that we've just built is exactly the right size for a Triceratops habitat. With the Triceratops being twice the size of the rhino, all we need to do is double any length or height requirements and quadruple any area requirements, and we'll be able to build a good habitat for them. So after some simple maths, we need an 11,000 square meter outdoor paddock and 120 square meters of indoor holding per Triceratops, and that's what we're building here. That's all the measuring done. On to the fun stuff. The first thing we're going to build is the habitat barrier. So what we need here is a 3-meter tall wall to keep the Triceratops in. But obviously we don't want a 3-meter tall wall because our guests aren't going to be able to see over it. So what we're going to do is build a wall which is 2 meters underground and 1 meter above ground, and then we'll dig out a moat around the habitat so that on the guest side of things the wall is 1 meter high, and then on the Triceratops side of things it is 3 meters high, and those guys aren't going anywhere. We'll use some fairly simple chuck and walls and these LED pieces to make a railing, which if we color black won't glow, and because of the way the terrain works in the game we can't have kind of a right angle hole in the ground. We're going to have some sand on the guest side of the wall so it melds in smoothly with the paths. That's starting to look nice. And then we'll have sand at the bottom of the wall on the Triceratops side of things to meld it in smoothly with the terrain. That then enables us to go in and dig our dry moat that's going to surround the whole habitat, make sure the viewing is good and the Triceratops are contained. We're going to have 1 male and 2 female Triceratops in here, which is the recommended mix for rhinos. No idea if that would work for Triceratops, but it'll be fine. One thing that wouldn't be fine is a vertical drop on the side of the moat because they weighed about 8 tons and they do themselves some serious damage if they fell in. So we'll put in a nice smooth gradient on the Triceratops side of the habitat. So we'll just use the terrain tools to start getting this moat together, start getting some of the wall in. We've got a nice curve on it there. And you can see how tall it is from the rhino's perspective to make sure that they are contained within the habitat. We'll drop in a viewing gallery here. That's going to form part of the indoor building, so I want the guests to actually go in there. Going to be a nest as well, so we can get some babies. And I won't make you wait until the next episode this time to see them. There we go, this is really starting to come together. I want to preserve the view of In with the Raptors in the background as well, so we'll keep that in mind while we're building. And we've got some power relays scattered around this habitat as well that we can't get rid of. We need that power, so we'll use some rock work to disguise those. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and make sure you subscribe if you're new to the channel. And then we'll go in and finish off this moat. Once we've got it down to the correct depth so that we can see the sand at the bottom, we'll use the flatten terrain tool to draw it all in. And then we'll use the smooth tool to get a nice, smooth gradient down to the bottom. With that done, we should probably go and grab some Triceratops DNA. So we'll do that, and then we'll move on to building the indoor house. In keeping with the real zoo theme that we've got going on today, I'm going to take a couple of real zoo houses as inspiration for this build. Firstly, the giraffe house at the Parc Zoologique de Paris, and secondly, the black rhino house at Chester Zoo. The giraffe house in Paris is really cool looking. The actual building itself is pretty basic. It takes in all the features that it needs to suit the animals, but then it's got this crazy wooden cladding all over it, which is really random looking, really original. I've not seen anything quite like it before, and we're going to be heavily inspired by that today. And then I've taken a few details from Chester's black rhino house just to make sure this feels like a real house. So the main part of the building is going to be a simple brick build. I'm going to use the diagonal walls. I think this is the first time I've ever actually used these diagonal walls. They're really useful, although it took me about half an hour to realize there's also diagonal roofs. I was making all crazy custom roofs to cover up the diagonal bits and then realized there's just diagonal roof pieces that you can use to fill that in. We'll put a trim on it as well. Unless I missed it, there definitely isn't diagonal trim pieces, which is kind of annoying, but I just managed to just rotated these straight trim pieces to fit over the diagonal parts. So I just copied a couple of these on here. Looks pretty smooth. And then we'll finish off the roof. So I want it to be pretty dark and atmospheric in here. That's how it was at Chester. I thought it worked really well. So what I'm going to do is just add some skylights in and some smaller arched windows on the side so we can get some light in here but keep it nice and moody, with most of the light falling on the area at the front where the guests are going to be looking, and then we've got their holding pens at the back kind of in darkness. And that's the basics of the exterior done. Let's move on to the interior. In order to do that, we're just going to pop that roof off, and it'll be much easier for us to build stuff inside. We've got some holding pens here. Just built these from various fence pieces, very similar to what we built in the Stegosaurus habitat, but I've used a sturdier looking fence and scaled it up as well, just so it looks like it could contain a Triceratops. We'll copy in some of the feeders that we built for the Stegosaurus as well, just have a couple of those in each holding pen. And then, according to the care manual, concrete is the best substrate to use. Is concrete a substrate? I don't know, a floor, whatever you want to call it, for the indoor habitat. So I initially covered all of this in concrete, but I didn't really like the way it looked, so I decided in the end to have more natural looking dirt terrain in the sort of guest facing part of the front and keep the concrete for the holding cells. And once we've got all of that in, we'll use some of these brick columns, which I really like the way there's some of the bricks are actually kind of sticking out. So we'll use that to fill in the area around the viewing gallery and get that to look seamless. Doesn't need to look flash from this side, only the Triceratops and the keepers are going to see it from there, but I want it to look finished at least. So we'll use that, and then we'll use some brick trim to fill in these door frames. It's important that there's more than one way for the Triceratops to get inside, which is why we've got two arches here. We'll get those looking good, drop a door in, and then we'll add some drainage as well so that you could hose this floor down. I shudder to think how much mess an 8-ton animal would create in here. We'll drop the ceiling light supports in that we originally built for Stegosaurus, and that's the interior pretty much done for the moment. Let's move outside. Our next job is to match the colour of the paths to the colour of the sand that we placed down earlier, so we get a completely seamless join between those, which is going to make this guest path here look really good. And once we've done all of those, we can turn our attention to building the kind of crazy wood panelling that's going to cover this building and make it look much more exciting. We're going to be covering the whole building in horizontal wooden planks, which will be going in all sorts of different directions, all sorts of different heights. They won't necessarily be following the shape of the building exactly. And we're going to begin by getting one plank and then spinning it in all the different directions so we can get 4 different textures on the front of it, which is the bit that we're going to be seeing. So if we do that, you can see we've got 4 here now, and none of them have got the same texture on it. It just makes it look a bit more interesting. And then we'll attach them to some poles so that they've got some support, and then copy them down so we've got quite a sizable chunk of wood to work with. And then we'll just change the angle on a few of the planks as well to get a nice random look to it. And then finally add some supports on the backs to actually attach them to the building. And once we've done that, we can start placing them all around the building and getting this visual interest in there. So at the front, we'll have them pretty much lined up with the building. So we've got an obvious front to it where the doors for the guests are going to go. And then around the rest of the building, we can start playing with the angles and just having different fairly random looking angles at different sides of the building. We're going to have it at 2 or 3 different heights as well, and vary that. And we'll make it so that from where the guests are stood on the floor, you can't see the roof of the building, you can't really see the shape of the building. It's just this really interesting array of wooden planks. We're going to change the colours as well, so they're lighter at the top than they are at the bottom. And just keep copying this one piece basically until we've got the whole building covered up. And then we're going to add some plants. So we're going to take some bushes, spin them upside down as we do so often, and use those to start filling in some gaps in the wood and providing some pops of colour and even more interest to this front. So we'll have a couple of them in here like this. We use a few different types of bushes as well. We always use these ones, but I discovered the manzanita bushes look pretty cool upside down as well. So we'll spin one of those upside down, get that in here, in and amongst the ones that we've got in there already. That just provides a slightly different shade of green and a slightly different texture. And then we're going to put in a couple of little gardens as well, just really small ones. We'll make them with the smallest rock, shrunk as small as it will go, and just randomly rotating those around this part of the building here. We'll have one on the other side, just with a few plants in there, and we'll use the soil panels as well so that the plants aren't just growing out of the concrete. These will provide a nice framing for the central part of the building where the doors are going to go. The real building's got a great personality, if the buildings can have a personality when you look at it. I found it really intriguing when I was looking at it in Paris Zoo. I wasn't expecting to recreate it in Jurassic World Evolution. But once this is finished, I'm glad that we did, because I think it's a really strong looking building once it's done. So let's get it done. What I've placed in here is actually part of my wetlands blueprint set for the viewing galleries, because it's got the perfect piece of wood on it, which will finish that part of the building off really nicely. And then we're going to go in and build some custom doors in a second. We'll put a sign on there. Again, just do some nice typography like we do with most of our habitats, just playing around with these letters, getting something that looks good. And then once we've got it finished, we will copy it. And this time we're going to make the back part of it green, and then just copy that down just below those letters and just behind those letters, so we get a kind of drop shadow effect. There we go. We'll add some thatch in as well. Saw a little bit of thatch in the building in Chester Zoo that helped to inspire this, and I thought what could be more perfect for a Jurassic Park or Jurassic World than a bit of thatch. And then we're going to use this glass piece here to create some doors. So we'll put it in once, and then we'll copy it down so we get a little bit of a door frame there. And then we'll put some decals on the doors and in between them. We do actually have this Triceratops, or it's some sort of ceratopsian anyway, decal here, so we'll use that as a bit of signage just in between the two doors. It's flexi-color as well. And then we'll take some of the warning signs and things like that. You always have loads and loads of stickers on real doors in zoos, so we'll do that here, get as many as possible on there. And we want some door handles as well, or the kind of flat metal plates that you push the doors open with. Don't know if that's a handle, I'm not sure what the official term for those is. But I managed to find these really small metal pieces, so if we shrink these down, we can make those with these. And there we go, that is the door finished off. I think that looks really realistic, very happy with that. And we're almost done with this build. We just need to put in the actual paddock and the various features that the Triceratops are going to need to be happy, or what they would need if they were rhinos anyway. We will assume they're the same. So let's get started on that. First up is a wall to enable the Triceratops to be separated into two separate areas if they needed to be. So we've put that in, and then we use a couple of these big gates to create the separator. Looking good. And visual barriers are really important in rhino habitats, and we'll assume it's the same for Triceratops, in case one wants to get away from another or anything like that. So we'll put a big old lump of rock in the middle of the habitat to serve that purpose. And we also need some mud wallows over and above the water that we'll be putting into the habitat anyway. We're going to make some little mud wallows using the ground water tool, and then we'll surround that with dirt. Drop a few little pebbles and rocks and things like that in there, and then some more normal terrain around it. We'll have 3 of these, so they've got 1 each, and then we'll put the water in at the back of the habitat and have it so we got little bits of water in both sides of the area for when any Triceratops are separated. We'll paint some rock in around the edges of the grass so we don't have the grass growing all the way down to the moat. And rhinos need shelter over and above their indoor houses, so we'll assume Triceratops need that as well. So we'll make some little shelters just using these roof pieces and some columns. We're going to make some tree guards because I want some trees in here, and I reckon a Triceratops could have a tree over in a second. I'm not entirely sure this little metal thing would actually stop them, but it goes some way towards making it look realistic when we add those in. And then rubbing posts. Rhinos are a big fan of rubbing posts, and I reckon Triceratops would enjoy a good scratch as well. So we're going to make one just with a concrete column and some tyres. We'll make the tyres as big as they go, and then we'll shrink the column so it fits nicely into the middle of it, and we'll add an extra bit of concrete on the bottom as a base as well, just to make sure it's firmly stuck into the ground and can resist the advances of a Triceratops. And that is our realistic Triceratops habitat built. Let's check it out. Here's the Triceratops. I found that the Jurassic World Evolution skin is much higher resolution than the Jurassic Park skin, so I've given the females the Jurassic Park colouring using the JWE skin, and then I've given the male a kind of bluish tinge, which I really like. And here is their finished building. Love how that looks in the sunshine there, and it's just got that real zoo-y kind of feel with that dry moat. Let's see what they make of it. I think the Triceratops fit in here really nicely. I think it's a really good size for them. I love how they look coming in through the mist here, down to one of their mud wallows. Here's the male. Great model, really like that texture. and I've initiated a breeding program straight away. So one of the females is straight into their indoor building here. You can see the view that the guests would have from the viewing gallery, and it's not long before we've got some little baby trikes. Super cute. There we go, this is where we started today, and this is where we are now. That is a lot of the Cretaceous area done, but we've still got a few habitats to get in here. Thank you so much for watching as always. I'll see you again next week for some more Jurassic World Evolution 3. Bye.